Weeks about politics. Talking about Reagan earlier, Reagan and Patrick earlier. I've been talking about doing this all week, and been through about 6 or 7 iterations of this. And this morning, I scrapped it all and started again. So this is called Ronald Reagan Killed My Dad. My two close. I've been watching with horror as Trump 2.0 goes about attacking and obliterating science, medicine, research, and education. It's a complete shit show, but somehow RFK Jr. as head of HHS might possibly be the worst of the worst. And that got me to thinking about how Ronald Reagan killed my dad. I had a difficult time focusing on where and what to say tonight. I went down rabbit hole after rabbit hole, but long story short, my dad was gay. He died in 1998 at age 57, 5 years younger than I am today. And while his death certificate shows primary cause is Hodgkin's lymphoma, the secondary reason is HIV, the cause of AIDS. Ronald Reagan killed my dad and so many others with his refusal to address the burgeoning AIDS crisis in the early 80s when the disease first showed up among gay men and IV drug users. AIDS was seen as a lifestyle disease, a moral failing, sinful degeneracy, and if you succumbed to this killer, you got what you deserved. Their lives were deemed unworthy. AIDS was the gay plague. Irrational fears abound. You could catch it from a water fountain or a toilet seat. You could get it from touching an infected person or breathing the same air as them. Ronald Reagan served 2 terms as president from 1981 to 1989. At the end of 1981, there were 160 reported AIDS deaths. In 1984, Ryan White, a 13-year-old hemophiliac, contracted the disease from the blood supply, thrusting him into the national spotlight and causing even more fear and panic about the disease. He died 5 years later. Research foundations still bear his name. In 1985, 50s leading man and heartthrob, Rock Hudson, appeared in public looking very frail. We were told it was liver cancer, but then we found out he too had AIDS. Hudson was the first public celebrity to die from the disease. It was only then his fellow Hollywood actor Ronald Reagan publicly acknowledged the disease for the first time. At the end of 1985, there were 12,598 reported AIDS deaths. In March 1986, conservative pundit William F. Buckley Jr. wrote, "Everyone detected with AIDS should be tattooed in the upper forearm to protect common needle users and on the buttocks to prevent the victimization of other homosexuals." Reagan would not actually address the American public on the AIDS crisis until May of 1987 at the American Foundation for AIDS Research Awards dinner, in which he spoke of his intention to create a national commission to study this disease 6 years into his presidency. Reagan was a devout Christian who believed homosexuality was a sin and is on the record stating to his biographer that maybe the Lord brought down this plague because illicit sex is against the 10 Commandments. Per Gallup at that time, between 43 and 44% of Americans believed that AIDS might be God's punishment for immoral sexual behavior. In 1987, the organization ACT UP, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, came to be. They were a very militant bunch of activists whose tactics are worthy of a revisit in today's political climate. This is their logo. Do we all know where the pink triangle came from? Nazi concentration camps. The Nazis used colors to identify prisoners. Green were criminal, red were political, yellow for the Jews, pink for homosexuals, pedophiles, and zoophiles, and all the other sexual deviants. Homosexuals were the lowest caste in the camp system and suffered abuse from everyone, fellow prisoners included. ACT UP reappropriated the symbol, turned the triangle upside down, and added silence equals death. At the end of 1987, there were 41,214 reported AIDS deaths. In 1988, ACT UP held a protest outside the FDA hoisting Reagan in effigy and chanting, History will recall Reagan and Bush did nothing at all. Other chants were, they're killing us, we're dying. Initially, Dr. Anthony Fauci bore the brunt of the activist ire, but soon came to a close working relationship with ACT UP in developing new treatments and personal friendships. New research protocols were created, including parallel tracks, in which AIDS patients were actively involved in drug trials. Previous to this time, everything was rigorously tested in labs before human use, but now lives were on the line and people were dying in ever-increasing numbers. Some of the same lessons we learned then were used with COVID. Dr. Fauci is a godsend to all of us. At the end of 1988, there were 62,418 reported AIDS deaths. Around the time that Dad and Magic Johnson were diagnosed in 1991, research began into protease inhibitors and cocktail combinations of drugs. These are the antiretroviral treatments used today. My dad participated in these parallel tracks trials, helping doctors and scientists develop the drugs used today to effectively manage AIDS globally. He endured all the side effects from all the drugs, the Hodgkin's lymphoma, the chemo, the side effects from the chemo, with grace and style. My dad is a hero as far as I'm concerned. In 1987, AIDS deaths declined for the first time. Drug combinations were working thanks to all this research. People were living longer thanks to the scientists and activists working with Dr. Fauci. In January of 1988, my sister got a call from Dad's office. He hadn't shown up and they hadn't heard from him. She got to his home, let herself in, and was the one to find him and called 911, but he had finally shuffled off this mortal coil. Ronald Reagan killed my dad and hundreds of thousands of others by failing to take action as the crisis developed and allowed his personal and religious views to affect public policy. We are now faced with an even greater threat to public health and safety than ever in our history with RFK, junior eugenicist, AIDS denialist, anti-vaxxer, conspiracy theorist, heading the Department of Health and Human Services. He has surrounded himself with like-minded cranks and nutters. I mean, Dr. Oz is now the head of Medicare and Medicaid. A couple weeks back at the White House, he said, "It is your patriotic duty," I'll say it again, "the patriotic duty of all Americans to take care of themselves because it is important for serving in the military, but it is also important because healthy people don't consume healthcare resources." Do you know who else said it was your patriotic duty to be healthy? The Nazis.